All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory be unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Makar Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that rule well, and peace, salutations, and blessings be unto the hopeful elect, pushing his truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the globe, in the sincere hopes of being delivered in these last days. All right, this is the brother Yakanan from the GMS England branch. This is going to be a very brief and to the point video based upon this information. In this video, I've just come across. Now, as you can see from the title, it reads, would mandatory, keyword being mandatory, digital ID help the government tackle illegal immigration? Okay, would mandatory digital ID help the government tackle illegal immigration? Now, this is taken from ITV Politics, and it can also be found on various other reputable, platforms. Now, for those of you that don't know, there's been heavy uproars, out here in the UK concerning immigration, okay? To the point where the St. George's Cross, all right, the flag has been utilized and is being raised in, various different villages and towns and, cities to invoke, fear and intimidation into those that would be, deemed as immigrants. Okay, so there's major division, that's taking place out here. There's a lot of tensions rising, racism and, so on and so forth. And it's really stirring the pot for, major violence and animosity, to further penetrate, the environment out here, right? Which really, is a beautiful thing, because these are the things that must indeed, commence in order for this system, this kingdom, of Esau Edom, to go down, okay? And as we know, the wicked elites of Esau Edom, through the technique, as I have loaded up here, of auto abkeo, all right, and it says here, auto abkeo is a Latin phrase meaning order from chaos, and it serves as the motto of the 33rd degree in Freemasonry. This phrase symbolizes the belief that order can emerge from disorder through understanding and knowledge, okay? Of course, from the left-hand side, all right? Because that's the vibration that the wicked elites of Esau Edom, all right, the ones that rule this earth in secrecy, that's the vibration, that they're coming in, okay? And through Auto Abkeo, all right, they are creating disorder upon the earth, engineered disorder, engineered chaos, in order to bring you the solution, in order to bring you the answer, to the chaos that they have themselves created, upon the earth. And again, in many different ways and forms. This is a technique that is utilized by the wicked elites, okay? So concerning, immigration in general, and immigration in the UK especially, there's always complaints of, these immigrants are taking all the jobs and, they're taking all the housing, and there's no opportunities for the, the so-called British people that are born and bred here, and, so on and so forth. The arguments and the complaints, go on and on and on, okay? But when you really, analyze, what's really going on. It's really, the powers that be that are creating this environment, okay? Who's bringing them over here? Who's allowing them, to freely, to come in and, to receive, these handouts and these benefits that, are being, spoken of. All right, it's the powers that be. If they really wanted to stop it, they could do it. It's all by design. Okay, they want these things to commence. They want, tensions to continue to, worsen, so they can take away your perceived liberty, that you believe that you have, all right, and give you, the answer, which, as you can see here, is going to be mandatory digital ID, which is not going to be, just for so-called illegal immigrants. It's going to be for everyone. Okay, it's going to be for everyone. And that digital ID, the next step, that's going to morph into what? The MOTB, okay, the Revelation 13 and 16. So as the scriptures tell us in 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11, for we are not ignorant of Satan's devices. Okay, we're not ignorant, of the evil schemes of the wicked elites of Esau, Edom, all right, through the Spirit, through this light, through this word, we know what's going on out here, okay? We are illuminated, if you will, to what's really happening, all right? Because we have the light, and the light allows you to see in the dark. All right, and we're living in a very dark and a very negative kingdom, as it tells us in Isaiah, the 60th chapter, from the top on down. It tells us about how gross darkness covered the people. All right, well, that gross darkness doesn't cover the elect of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. We can see clearly, what's going on in these last days. Okay, now let me play this video. It's a very short video, and you can just listen to what they're massaging into the minds of the people. And you idiots out here, in the UK, that are going out there and, rioting and, causing these uproars, so on and so forth. You're gonna welcome, this idea, all right, in the hopes that, this is actually gonna do something to tackle, this immigration problem that they have manifested, okay? But what you don't understand is it's also going to apply onto you, and it's also going to take away, your rights and your, freedom, of movement, so on and so forth, all right? Now let's play this.
How do compulsory ID cards help to control migration pressures in the channel at the borders when anybody here illegally already has to have a digital e-visa?
Well, morning, Ed. We're looking at the issue of digital ID. We've made no decisions as a government about whether we would go ahead with that or the basis upon which we would go ahead with that. Would it be something that's mandatory for everyone? Would it be something that would be available to people?
Right. Would it be something that's mandatory for everyone? Okay. And that's why, look, man, when we go to, let's go to, Psalm, 64, okay? Because the scriptures speak about how their mind is deep, okay? And I'm talking about the wicked elites of Esau, Edom. This is Psalm 64. Let's get straight to the point. And verse 6, and it reads, they search out iniquities, they accomplish a diligent search, both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep, okay? Now, when you go into that word heart in the Hebrew, it takes you to the word lab, all right, which means your mind, okay? So again, it says both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep, okay? And in the NOT, it says, as they plot their crimes, they say, we have devised the perfect plan. Yes, the human heart and mind are cunning, okay? And that's also another word, a good word that describes, the nature and one of the main characteristics of the Edomites, beginning with their elites, is that they are very cunning, okay? And they're very patient with their wickedness, okay? And that's exactly what we're seeing here, because this agenda, this plan, all right, has been mustering, for decades, okay? For many, many years to get to this point where they are right now, okay? And now we're starting to see how it's unfolding, on a larger scale. All right. So their mind, is deep concerning, bringing this plan, this evil agenda to light. Okay. Let's go back to the video. Let's go back a little bit.
Would it be something that would be available to people? Would it apply to people of all ages, or just over 16s or over 18s? I think this is a debate for the whole country to have. We've got to do this sort of thing with people rather than to people, because it affects all of us, and addressing some of the other issues that would also arise. What about those people that are not online or would not want to be online and might not want this form of ID? So I think all of those issues are up for debate. We've been looking at what countries like Estonia and others have been doing. I think it could be a tool on illegal migration. I think a lot of people are horrified that the government, any government in recent years, has not known exactly who is in the country. I don't think digital ID is about boat crossings. Digital ID is about making sure that we can identify people who are already here, who have no legal right to be here, and to make sure that where people have no right to be here, that they are deported and returned to where they came from.
Right, so that's, the guys that they're coming under, is that we need this so we can know who's who, who's meant to be here, who's not meant to be here. And that already, is going to tick that box of those individuals that are crying about immigration and crying about getting, everyone that's not British out of the nation, okay? Now, the government has no, real interest in following through with, those complaints. The government, all right, the powers that be, all right, the wicked elites of Esau, Edom, their main thing is control. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, they don't care. They want to control everyone ultimately, okay? They want everyone to be, sea-hipped, okay? They want everyone to receive within themselves the sea-hip. That's the main agenda, okay? And that's the agenda of Esau, Edom, throughout the four corners of the globe, okay? Now from there, let's go back to Revelation. Let's get straight to the point again. Chapter 13 and verse 16. And it reads, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name." Okay? Now when you go into that word for mark, in the Greek, it goes into charagma, okay? An incision, a cutting in the flesh. All right? So that's talking about a physical device that the wicked elites of Esau, Edom are gonna, bring out and make mandatory for all to receive. If you want to take part on the grid, okay, and live and function and have a somewhat normal, lifestyle, okay? Which again, the elect of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai will not be impaled with that technology, okay? Because we're going to have victory over the beast, over his mark, and over the image as pursuing to biblical prophecy, okay? So again, that's the agenda, all right? That you're not going to be able to, buy or sell if you don't have, that MARK, within yourself. That's the environment that's currently, right now being brewed and being, brought to life, in these last days. Okay? So I'm gonna cut it off there. Lord willing, this brief lesson has been edifying, and until the next time, I'll say shalom.